I live by the motto that numbers don't lie. The numbers reflect the verdict of the people.
This past election, I believe we had an all-time record high of nearly 5 million folks participate in the November 3rd election. A little more than 1.3 million voted via absentee ballot.
Republican Jeff Duncan is the lieutenant governor of Georgia, a state former President Trump won in 2016 and lost narrowly in 2020. Duncan believes there needs to be a conversation about election reform.
But like every election cycle, I believe there's an opportunity to take some lessons learned and look for opportunities to make our elections even better.
Duncan stands apart from some Republican colleagues in the legislature. Despite historic voter turnout and no evidence of fraud, Republican state senators introduced bills in late January.
All senators who have bills and resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time.
That would require a photo ID for absentee voting, eliminate ballot drop boxes, and no-excuse absentee ballots. The latter undoing a 2005 Republican-backed law allowing no-excuse absentee voting.
I think looking at an opportunity is it time to maybe modernize the way that we handle absentee ballots? I think there needs to be a conversation. If the answer comes back and says, oh gosh, the things you're doing will actually hurt or impede the ability to vote and make it harder, I don't think that's something that we need to go that direction. But if there's an opportunity to modernize, right, whether that's a photo ID or some other format, certainly there's other ideas that are out there to make sure that it's easy for 159 counties and easy for Republicans and Democrats, right? Both. Election reform is supposed to be bipartisan.
So for anyone who's been paying attention, the whole reason that the New Georgia Project exists is because of tactics and shenanigans like this. While most states expanded no excuse absentee balloting because of the pandemic that we're living through, Georgia was not one of those states. And now all of a sudden, they have questions about election integrity. Listen, we anticipated it, and we are prepared to defend our work and defend access to the franchise.
A new push to change election laws extends beyond Georgia. Republican lawmakers in battleground states across the country have pushed for additional voting restrictions. Last month, the Republican National Committee chair encouraged state legislatures to take up election measures after Trump's loss.
We are going to come out of this with a mission to go to our state legislators, to go to our leaders, and make sure that what we saw in this election never happens again, that poll watchers are allowed to observe, that we put meaningful voter ID laws in the books, and that we make sure that every American has faith in our election process.
According to the Brennan Center for Justice, more than 100 bills have been introduced in nearly 40 states to restrict voting access. More than a third of them are meant to limit mail voting, which was the focus of Trump's baseless fraud claims.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
It's worth noting, just because bills are being introduced doesn't mean they'll be enacted. Any member of a legislature can introduce a bill that may or may not have support in the broader chamber, or be signed into law by the governor. But in many of the states that decided the 2020 election, like Georgia, Republicans have the power to enact such laws that could affect future elections for years to come.
As Republicans have been reckoning with just how much they want to turn the page on the Trump era, I think it's clear that we're seeing many state Republican parties are going to make that difficult. Whatever we're seeing on the national level as far as promoting the president's voter fraud claims, we're often seeing some of these state parties go even further with conspiracy theories, with measures to censure people who run afoul of the president, and even more generally, just with promoting the Trump angle on these things in a way that we don't even see with some of these national Republican leaders.
We're in a critical redistricting year where they are redrawing maps and lines. And so my hope is that when we win, that it will give us a reprieve and we won't have to be fighting these same fights over the next decade.